Hey everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with historythroughcards.com. I hope you're all doing very well today. In this video, I'm going to share with you the story of Jim Bouton and his book, Ball 4. This is a 1964 Topps. It is autographed, and he signed quite a bit during his lifetime. And you guys can pick up his autograph fairly affordably today. When he did his book Ball 4, it was very controversial for the time because no other baseball player really did a tell-all book of what it was like playing in the Yankees system and then in the Pilots as well during their 1969 season, which I believe Ball 4 is actually written mostly about. And I'll get more into this after I read this article about Jim Bouton and his Ball 4 experiences writing this book. So I thought you guys would really enjoy this and learn something a little bit new or different. And here we go. This is from the Times, Gainesville, Georgia, July 12th, 2019. Bouton shaped journalists with his description of what it was really like as a ball player by Mark Bradley, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Baseball has inspired many a wordsmith to practice wordsmithery of the highest order. Roger Angell in The New Yorker read Smith on a daily basis. Roger Kahn in The Boys of Summer, Bill James in his industry-changing almanacs. Many recall John Updike, more for Hub fans, Bill Kidd Adu, his reportage on Ted Williams' final at bat, as for his Robert Angstrom chronicles. Don DeLillo, maybe the greatest living writer, began his final cycle, Underworld, with an imagined recounting. Frank Sinatra, Jackie Gleason, and J. Edgar Hoover are involved, of Bobby Thompson's home run. But the greatest book about baseball, one of the greatest books about anything, was written by a baseball player. His name was Jim Bouton. He died at 80 on Wednesday. Bouton's last big league appearance after nearly a decade of wandering in the minors was as an Atlanta Brave at the shank of the 1978 season, when the Braves were wretched and Ted Turner would do anything to get noticed. Ted signed Bouton, who was 39 years old and who went 1-3 with a 4.97 ERA. When he was 30 and a Seattle Pilot, later known as the Houston Astros, Bouton kept the diary that would, with the assistance of Leonard Schechter, become Ball 4. It's impossible for anyone who wasn't of reading age when Ball 4 was published to grasp what a commotion it caused. Excerpts ran in Look magazine. Look was the competitor to Life magazine. Both are long gone. When the book was released in June 1970, nearly every sports writer, I wasn't yet one, I'd just finished my freshman year at Maysville, Kentucky High School, in the land, decried it. The famous Dick Young unleashed his gentle appraisal in the New York Daily News. Quote, I feel sorry for Jim Bouton. He is a social leper. His collaborator on the book, Leonard Schechter, is a social leper. People like this, embittered people, sit down in their time with deepest rejection and write. They write, oh hell, everybody stinks, everybody but me, and it makes them feel much better, unquote. And here you thought Michikaku Kakatuni was the most acidic New York book reviewer ever. Bowie Kuhn, the commissioner too busy to be at Atlanta Fulton County Stadium on the night Henry Aaron hit number 715, wasn't too busy to deem the book detrimental to baseball. Players hated it. In May, after the excerpts appeared, Bouton started at the Astrodome against the Cincinnati Reds. Then the imperious Big Red Machine mode. He got nobody out. The first four hitters were Pete Rose, Bobby Tolan, Tony Perez, and Johnny Bench. Three got hits, the other walked. He was pulled before further damage ensued. Watching on TV, I felt conflicted emotions. I always liked the Reds. Maysville is 60 miles from Cincinnati, but the Reds announcers and the Reds themselves were oppressive enough in their glee that I wound up feeling sorry for Bouton. He would later write about that game and how the Reds were calling him freaking Shakespeare and yelling, "Put that in your flipping book." Players, see, were mad because Bouton had touched the third rail. He'd let the world know that the big leaguers weren't exactly Chip Hilton. He described their flexible approach to marital vows. He wrote that they were often more zealous in their pursuit of, shall we say, late-night sports than in their dedication to their day jobs. Worst of all, at least in their minds, he depicted the sainted Mickey Mantle as a weepy drunk. Almost alone among major sports, baseball inspired an almost religious devotion to its followers. Bob Costas, who had no trouble bashing the NFL over concessions, and good for him, his admitted carrying a 1958 Mickey Mantle Topps card in his wallet along into adulthood. Bouton yanked back the curtains and informed us that Coon's boys of summer were no longer boys and, in some cases, not very good men. In some, he committed sacrilege. Personal note, I never much liked Mantle. I much preferred Carl Yastrzemski and Roberto Clemente and Hammer and Hank. Even then, Ball 4 put me to the test. Bouton wrote that Yaz loafed on the field. By the time I read that part, I didn't care. I loved Ball 4 so much, I estimate I'd read it 10 times, that I'd have followed Bouton anywhere. True story, Gary, my UK roommate, and I were of similar minds about Ball 4. Gary put together a Ball 4 quiz, included 50 questions. I took it. I missed one. Another before a game at Riverfront Stadium in the early 1970s. I slided down to the visitors' dugout and struck up a conversation with the Astros' Norm Miller, a player for no renown except for having been Bouton's roommate. Said Miller of Bouton in response to the first question I'd ever asked a professional baseball athlete, "He's an interesting guy. I can elicit a pithy quote or what." By then, Bouton was gone from the majors. He started with the Yankees, hence his insights into Mantle as a hard thrower, but he hurt his arm and sought to remake himself as a knuckleballer. Ball 4's original subtitle, My Life and Hard Times Throwing the Knuckleball in the Major Leagues. He hooked on with the expansion Pilots, who traded him to Houston late in the 1969 season. It must be said, as a knuckleballer, he wasn't Phil Negro, but the charm of Bouton was that he was bright enough to challenge received baseball wisdom and reveal much of it as rank stupidity. The best parts of Ball 4, there are no bad parts, were Bouton's weathering takes on Pilots manager Joe Schultz and pitching coach Sal Magley. Johnny Sane, who'd been Bouton's pitching coach with the Yankees, is presented in a warmer light. Instead, I still quote Bouton, who was quoting Sane, quote, "It never hurts to say you're sorry, even if you don't mean it," unquote. Magley, the legendary Sal the Barber of New York Giants days, is portrayed as a classic second-guesser. Schultz is portrayed as a cretin. Schultz's advice to a reliever on how to work a particular batter, quote, "Forget him. Give him some low smoke and we'll go pound some Budweiser, unquote. Other Schwartzisms, even today, remain NSFW. All are hilarious in their pre-dumb and dumber way. Bouton had a great year. He wrote a follow-up to Ball 4 titled, I'm glad you didn't take it personally, which is what the ever-gracious Young told Bouton after labeling him a leper. It's nearly as good. It includes Yankees president Mike Burke's verdict on Ball 4, which was, in its entirety. I, on the other hand, enjoyed it. It also includes the LOL meeting with Kuhn, in which the gasbag commish harumphs his displeasure before deciding in the grand Kuhn way to do nothing. But nothing could ever trump Ball 4. You can only tear the vial asunder once. It's among my many regrets that I've never met Jim Bouton. I have no idea whether Ball 4 led me to this vocation. I liked sports and sports writing already. Reading and rereading Ball 4 has been, to quote Neil Young, one of the pleasures of my life. I knew we got a lot of crap for that book. I didn't realize how much, in fact. Have you guys ever read this book? If you have, let me know in the comment section below. And I'd love to have a nice conversation with you guys about it. Again, as I say, like Jim Bouton was like one of the first ball players that I can think of who wrote a book like this. A lot of times, certain press members would be allowed into the clubhouse, and man, they would see a lot of stuff. Whenever I talked to a professional baseball player, a lot of times it was off the record, and that made the player, the athlete, more comfortable, and it was just me and him talking about whatever. A lot of the times, I would talk to the ball players about everything except sports, and I did get some really interesting takes on a lot of the ball players that I talked to and got to know over the years. And here's the other thing too, is that as collectors, we interact with a lot of ball players, and sometimes in different settings than a card show. So I kind of fortunate, at least I feel fortunate enough, that I did get to know a lot of the ball players who played in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and even up to the 80s and 90s. But I don't really talk about it too much. First off, a lot of people can't really relate to what we do as collectors interacting with these people, and it's something I'll probably talk more about in the future. I really enjoyed my time talking with, like, say, Bob Feller or Johnny Pesky or Dom DiMaggio or Bobby Dorr, however quiet he was. And, just talking to these people off the record, you get a different sense of what not only baseball was like when they were playing, but what the country was like too. And it's a vastly different country that these guys were sometimes fighting for in World War II than it is today. And they weren't making a whole lot of money either. And in most cases, they were working jobs when the season ended. I really wanted to tell you guys about this today and see what you guys thought about Ball 4, if you've actually read it, or the follow-up book to that. And the other thing, he kind of mentions and goes into detail on some of the writers too. And I kind of get the feeling that a lot of writers don't like each other. I know that's kind of true for a certain extent. The writers that I have met or even read their articles religiously, I think he mentioned Red Smith in there. Some of these guys are really, really talented writers, really great writers. And most of the writers, though, sports writers especially, they're long forgotten. Roger Kahn, he wrote the book Boys of Summer about the Brooklyn Dodgers, and I highly recommend you guys read that because it is a fantastic read. But when you get some of those Brooklyn Dodgers off the record, they start opening up, or as they did, because they're all passed on now. I think there's only one or two left, and that's the other thing too. Is like, because we see them on a baseball card like this, we tend to forget actually how old they are. And a lot of times I kind of forget how old some of these vintage cards are, in fact. And I mean, it happens. But Roger Kahn really did a great job on his Boys of Summer book. And it is, I think they said it's like one of the top 10 reads that you guys really should check out. And there are a few others too. The Glory of Their Times is another book that I highly recommend. And that's about the ball players of the 1910s, the dead ball era, and it's in their own words. And it's something um, that was recorded when these guys were like in their 70s and 80s, and sometimes probably even in their 90s. The dead ball era guys really it's different for them than it is for guys like Jim Bouton here. Just because when the dead ball era ended in about 1920 or so, you only well, you didn't even have radio in 1920. It was just starting out in the public forum, and so all they had was uh, a newspaper accounts, and whereas the guys who played in the 1930s and 40s, 50s, and whatever, they had the movies, they had newsreels, they had other forms of media, whereas the dead ball era guys really didn't have anything out there. And so that's a great read too. But guys, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this, and I will talk to you in another one. Have a good one. Bye.